ever wonder why porn affect ED and ED and porn, and why is porn so addicting? Well, in today's episode, we're going to talk about all those points. So stay tuned when I'm going to be talking with Eric the Powerful. This podcast is for you, the modern man. I'm Dr. Ann Trung, your host. I'm an intimate health medical doctor and best-selling author of the book Erectile Dysfunction Fix. I'll do a deep dive into sexual health and performance and how it affects men of all ages and backgrounds. So let's get started, and be sure to visit my website at sexualhealthformenpodcast.com for more information and resources from the show. See you on the inside. Well, hello there, mon man. I am here today with Eric Zuzack. I am so excited, but we're going to talk about porn and ED today. Eric struggles with porn addiction and sex addiction, and he is now a recovering coach. He is the host of a five-starred podcast, Porn Talk, and he is also an Amazon best-selling author of the book, Think Big. He helped men worldwide break toxic sexual habits to transform themselves into repairing their relationship and become a better person. So, welcome, Eric.
Thank you, Dr. Ann. It's my pleasure to be here. We were talking before we started recording, and this is a heavy topic, but we're going to have some fun with it.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's an important topic. It could be heavy, and I want to bring real talk into this. And so let's start first with your journey. I'd like to hear about how you became powerful, Eric, and what was it like to be addicted to porn and sex?
Well, it started when I was very young. Um, I had found some pornography, and I was also house sitting for a neighbor down the street who had a massive collection of Playboy magazines, and literally was a collector, like collected them back to all the way back.
And how old were you then?
Around 10 years old, something like that. And so I would eagerly, happily accept the offer to house sit or dog sit when they would leave. And so it started there. And then, it even started back further than that, like with just, it seems so silly, like now because of the massive amount of porn that's available, but like, the Sears catalog, the bra section, or the National Geographic with the native women, with no top on it. It seems so comical now. But then, I found the Playboys, and then I found a VHS copy of pornography, and then I found the crack cocaine of porn, and that is high-speed internet porn. And once I found that, I was majorly hooked. But the thing of it is, though, is I finally did realize that I had a problem. For example, I had a friend that was dying from breast cancer. This is when I was much older. And we were supposed to meet for lunch. And I lost track of time because I was acting out with pornography. I called her up and said, hey, something came up. I lied, which is often common with addictions. And so I lied and I said, something came up. Can we reschedule? She said, sure, no problem. Well, soon after that, I ran into a mutual friend and they said, did you hear? I said, did I hear what? About Heather. Well, what about Heather? Heather died. And so I chose to act out to pornography rather than having lunch with my dying friend. And that was a wake-up call. And I had many different wake-up calls along the way, and I ended up what I call burning days. That's where I would get up in the morning, not intentionally thinking that I'm going to use porn all day. I would just say, oh, I'm going to get on the computer and use porn for a little while and knock one out. But then I would skip breakfast. And then lunchtime would come around and I'd skip lunch because I'm still going at it. I'd be edging, edging. And then dinner time would even roll around. And so I'd be really hungry. I'd put a pizza in the oven, go back to the porn while the pizza's baking. Then I burnt the pizza, come back because I lost track of time because with porn, you get tunnel vision. And I'd eat some burnt pizza, stay up to 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, then have to get up and go to work. And it would have the worst, what I call porn hangover ever. I'm literally juiced of my life force energy. My sexual energy is depleted. My I haven't slept. I've got very little sleep. And on top of that, add massive amount of guilt and shame. That is a porn hangover.
Okay, so that was actually my question. What is a porn hangover? And so let's kind of backtrack a little. How many years were you addicted to porn? You started when you were about
Let's
10 or
just say
12,
around 10 years old to my early 40s.
right?
So you could
Okay,
say
so
I'm
about 30
50.
plus years.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
52. So you could say, really the majority of my life.
right. Uh, at least about 32 years. And what did porn give you that was so addictive? It seems like you were describing from morning until night. You
Yeah.
will be watching porn from how many hours would you say on average when you were addicted to porn?
When I was really like, really in it, I would definitely, it was every day. And it was usually before bed. So, you know, and I mean, depending on what's going on that day, but several hours every day. So several
So would
hours
you
every.
say about six, 4 to 6 hours every day,
Definitely, yes, yeah.
and even more?
Oh yeah, and like the day I described there, yeah, even more sometimes, yeah.
Okay, and how did porn interfere or maybe help with relationship with other women?
Well, it didn't help in any way, shape, or form. That's for sure. In fact, if anything, it kept me shy from approaching women because, for example, if I'd go out with friends for an evening and there would be an attractive young lady, instead of going up and talking to her, I'd I would be like, well, I she may say no, I may feel bad, so I could just go home and masturbate to porn later. So it would keep me from reaching out to the real world because there was these fake, you know, these digital relationship that I would go back to. So it definitely did not help relationships. That's for sure. Just a little side tangent. Divorce attorney. There's a divorce attorney group, and they cite porn in is at least a contributing factor to at least 50% of divorces out there. Now that's not saying that it's the reason, but it's at least a contributing factor in up to 50% of the divorce cases.
Well, why do you think porn is so addictive? What
Well,
does it provide for and well, for men? It seems like men are use porn more than women. What
yeah.
does it give men that is so addictive?
What's so addicting with internet porn is a different animal, and this is why it's so addictive is because we are biologically hardwired to seek mates and new mates. So with internet porn, you can literally see more potential mates in one sitting than our ancestors would view in an entire lifetime. So we can sit there and click, and it's novelty. It's a new mate, it's new mate, another new mate, another new mate, another new mate. And your brain, it's like, oh, we're not going to stop. There's another new mate. Here's another new mate. And so it's that novelty. It's that novelty of another potential new mate. And that's why it's different from the old school porn that I grew up with like magazines and VHS tapes. But Before we get into that, I know I'm opening that discussion, but going back to your original question about why I call myself powerful Eric, I don't call myself powerful Eric out of ego. It's because I had sought out help. I went the traditional, regular route. So, I went to a traditional therapist. Of course, they put me on uh, antidepressants. And then I was told I needed to go to 12-step meetings. For those of you who are not familiar, a 12-step meeting is like Alcoholics Anonymous. Everybody knows AA. Well, there's there's a Sexaholics Anonymous. There's Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. There's Sexual Compulsives Anonymous. I went through them all. I did. I went through all of them, and I don't mean I just went through them. I threw my whole self into them for many years, almost 2 decades. And they have you say that you are powerless over the addiction, and I understand that. There's a there in the beginning that is helpful. You have to say that you have a problem, but what happens is, and I know because I did it, and all my friends that were in the programs, or all the program friends that I met, I mean, is that you start to identify with the problem. So, for example, I would introduce myself. Hi, my name is Eric. I'm a sexaholic. I'm powerless over porn. Then they have you describe your most worst behavior that you did. So after doing that for years and years and years, you identify, like when I would go to brush my teeth, I'm like, yeah, there's Eric. He's the porn addict. Yeah, I brush my teeth. I'm the porn addict. And whatever I'm doing, I'm the porn addict. And that was not helpful because now that is needed in the beginning. That part of it is necessary in the very beginning. But what happens in these programs is you bring it through like the whole process through the very, like forever. You never stop identifying as the porn addict. And so I was in these programs for almost 2 decades with very little sobriety to show for myself. So I was desperate. I was desperate. I'm like, there's got to be another way. And so I found this little app. Unfortunately, the app no longer exists, but it was a little app that used the science of mindfulness to break porn addiction. And just on a whim, I thought to myself, I've been calling myself powerless, powerless Eric for decades. I thought, you know what? I'm going to put powerful Eric as my login. And in that moment, powerless, pitiful, porn addicted Eric died and powerful Eric was born. I don't call myself powerful Eric out of ego. It's out of having called myself a piece of shit and powerless for decades. And so that little did I know that little nuance, that little change would dramatically change my life.
Well, it's a mindset shift, right? It's
Exactly.
be and do what you think. So being powerful, thinking and doing powerful lead to those behaviors. And I like the way you say, well, when you say powerless, you become less power. You're giving yourself. It seems like you're not in control. So and maybe all those stuff should be reevaluated with as times are changing. You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
so were you also an alcoholic as well?
I was, well, I guess by definition, there was a part of my life that I was. Um, so I guess the short answer is yes, back in the day. And this is why. What I would do is if I was going out with friends, I would drink and get drunk with the intention of knowing that afterwards I'm going to go back home and really hit it hard with porn. And
And how did you know you were addicted? How did you know you were addicted to porn?
okay, this is a great question. This is a really good question. It's how it impacts your life because in the uh, in the medical fields and the mental fields, they get in this big discussion. Is porn, can you be addicted to porn? Can you not be addicted to porn? Is it addiction? Is it not addiction? And you know what I say? At least for my purposes, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you call it. You can call it an addiction. You can call it hypersexual. You can call it whatever you want. But at the end of the day, how is it impacting your life? Is it negatively impacting your life? Then it sounds like you may have an addiction to porn. But the question is, how is it affecting your life? Is it affecting your life negatively? Is it affecting your family's life negatively? Is it affecting you at work? Is it affecting your income? And I could say to all those questions, yes, yes, yes. It's negatively affecting all those things. So that's the question if you're debating. So one, if you are debating, like, I wonder if I'm addicted to porn. If you're thinking that, I would say you probably are. Like if you have to think like,
Mm-hmm.
am I addicted to porn? I would say then you probably are.
Right. So, when how do you define negative?
Well,
What does it mean? It's kind of an ambiguous word.
right. Well, for example, in my relationship with my wife, would I choose to engage with my wife or not even bother because she may say no? Just like the example I said earlier about not approaching an attractive woman before I was married, you know, at a bar or wherever, because I knew I could fall back on the porn. Same thing at home with my wife. It's like, do I bother to engage with her or do I just go and use porn? So there's less intimacy, uh, less openness with my wife, lying to cover up what I'm doing. That's another thing. Lying. Do you lie to people to say what you were doing at that time? Oh, where were you? I thought you were supposed to be at so and so's place. Oh, I was uh, I was at the doctor. At the doctor. No, you're at home using porn. So lying, that would be another big red flag. Hurting yourself, that you masturbate so much that you literally hurt your penis. Um, so I mean, there's a lot of red flags.
I see. So, let me ask you this question: is the orgasm ejaculation the same with porn masturbation compared to if you were with another person or with your wife,
No,
or is it better?
I'd say it's I'd say it's way different. It's a lot different, in that the when using porn, it's primarily like really just focused on your genitals, whereas my with another person, it's a whole body experience. And I gotta say, after I stopped masturbate, first I stopped masturbating to porn, and then some guys choose, and some do and some don't choose to actually stop masturbating as well, and I chose to do that. And when I stopped that, wow, I was like, I told my wife, I was like, wow, this is what sex is supposed to feel like, because the orgasms were incredible, and like, it's a whole body sensory thing. And so yeah, it's a lot different. It's definitely a lot different.
So the pleasure is different.
Yes.
Like having an orgasm with porn versus having an orgasm with a partner,
Right.
and you're so it's a better experience.
In my opinion, yes.
Okay, yeah, okay. So why do men gravitate towards more porn because they don't want to deal with this other issue with the other partner, and it's just easier access.
Well, easy access, that's the thing. I don't think anybody sits down and thinks, oh, do I want to try to have sex with my wife? Or that scenario I painted earlier really wasn't so much a conscious choice. It's just subconscious. It's easy. Like, we all carry around with us the world's largest porn library that has ever existed in the history of mankind, literally in our
Your cell
pockets.
phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if we don't have our phone, there's another digital device easily accessible. I mean, computers are everywhere. And if it's not, it's a laptop, if it's a pad. So you'd ask about the addiction part of it. That is a thing that really makes internet porn addiction so strong is it's readily available, and it's really, I mean, you can pay for porn too, and it's free. At least with drugs and alcohol, there's some money involved, and like I said, there can be with porn too, but I mean, my gosh, it's readily accessible. Oh no, that's another thing too. I mean, with drugs and alcohol, really you have to seek it out. And maybe in your neighborhood it's easy, but a lot of places it's not so easy to, so you have to seek those things out. They're outside of you. And it's different with porn and sex addiction in that, you know, even if you don't have the porn in front of you, you can just pull up a file in your brain and play that file again of that. I mean, I've done that many, many, many times. So porn, I'm sorry, drugs and alcohol is outside of you, but with sex and porn addiction, like for a guy, wherever you go, you bring your penis with you.
Yep. Uh, yep. That's a good way to say that. I haven't thought about it in that sense. And so on that note, um, how did you know I need help? How did you know? You know what? I need to do something about it. What was the maybe one event or compilation of event?
Well, the massive amount of time that I was spending on it. And I knew I had a problem like pretty young. In fact, I can remember distinctly in the eighth grade saying, I'm going to stop. And I can remember graduating high school. I'm like, I'm going to stop. I always use like some either a birthday with a zero behind it or some kind of major event in my life to say, I'm stopping, I'm done. And I guess I'm answering the question that way too, in that, you know, I had tried to stop many times before and couldn't stop. So by
Why is that?
well, I mean, prior to seeking any type of professional help, I could say I couldn't stop because, I mean, once you get to the point of where you're like addicted, trying to stop by yourself is like super challenging and hard. I'm sure there's people out there that can do it that have a relatively mild porn addiction, but for somebody that has a serious porn addiction, doing it by yourself is most likely not going to work. So I was trying to do it by myself and not tell anybody. And so I didn't start to get better until I opened up and like, hey, I've got a real problem. So the
Right.
short
So did
answer,
your friends and family say something to you, or
no,
you
I
just realized it yourself?
I knew it myself. I knew it myself. So, you know, reaching out for help is critical, crucial, and I know how embarrassing it can be, but it's worth it. It's worth what's on the other side. It's worth what's on the other side.
Right. So what was the biggest struggle? You said you have tried, and then you couldn't, and you get back on the bandwagon. What why was it so hard, and what made you finally, like, in your 40s say stop, and now you're 50, and you've been clean.
Yeah.
What was the mind shift?
Well, one of the one of the challenging things about my porn addiction is that I was a binge and purger sometimes, and that means I'd go at it, and then I'd stop and say, "Oh, I'm never going to do this again," and then I'd binge, and then stop. I mean, and I understand that that type of behavior is even more challenging to overcome this binge and purge cycle, and that's I was caught on the binge and purge cycle, and so I found that what I was doing was not working. And I was doing everything that the quote unquote professionals told me to do. And I got to say that these professionals were not sex and porn addicts, you know.
Mhm.
And so I, I, like I said, I had to find another way. So I started looking at the science of mindfulness, and mindfulness is a very large umbrella term. It encompasses many things, from anything from meditation to martial arts to uh, what I use is EFT and the emotional freedom technique, or tapping. So all these different things, and started using these other alternative tools and started to finally get results. But the biggest thing for me was the major mind shift of on how I viewed myself. That was this was the thing that everything else sprouted from. Once I changed the way I looked at myself from powerless to powerful, and stopped saying to myself that I'm going to be a porn addict and I'm a porn addict for life. Once I got that out of my mind, then the tree could start to grow, and then all these tools and other things that I'd learned were much more effective because I was viewing it from this positive standpoint. So if you can get yourself to the point where you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm moving through this challenge in my life right now, uh, as opposed to I am the challenge right now. Like, so it's, I'm moving through this. Now, maybe you've been moving through it most of your life, but I'm moving through this challenge. It's a change of mindset.
Yeah. So let's talk about porn and ED.
Yes.
Yeah. So I know that you work with men with addicted to porn and have ED
Right.
yourself. So what do you observe?
Yeah. So the interesting thing is, I did not intend when I started coaching men addicted to porn. My intention was not to like, I wasn't to, my intention was not to reach out to guys with PIDE, porn induced erectile dysfunction. That wasn't my intention. It was just to coach guys addicted to porn. But what I found is, like, seemingly every other client or every other person contacted me had PIDE. I'm like, what is the deal with this? And so, what I found, or we were just talking about this before we actually started recording, is that, well, the largest growing demographic that takes the little blue pill were 20-year-olds, because they've been viewing high speed internet porn since they were very little. However, for myself, when I'm 52, so this is pre-internet. I grew up with, the magazines, Playboy magazines, maybe Hustler, maybe, and then it got to the VHS tapes and that. So, yes, I was addicted to porn back then, but I couldn't binge and purge like all day, or couldn't binge all day with porn back then, because there wasn't enough material. I mean, there just wasn't enough. And so I am lucky in that I do not have, or did not have, porn induced erectile dysfunction. And I remember talking with another uh, another person about this, and I really think it's because at a very young age, I didn't have massive amount of un, unlimited amount of hardcore porn. Mine started off, more soft, and then went to the hard stuff, and it wasn't unlimited. I had, I couldn't. There was a limited amount of material, so I really believe that.
Because at that time there was no internet.
Right,
So he and I grew up in the 80s, and
right.
at that time there's no internet, there's no cell phone, there's no
Hmm.
navigation.
Hmm.
All you have is TV and magazine and
Hmm.
radio.
Yeah. So, like, if I was quote unquote lucky, I would have a VHS tape that was at the longest 90 minutes, usually not, usually more like 60 minutes. And, it's the same person or people on there over and over, and you get bored with it. And with high speed internet porn, there's no boredom. It's on to the next mate, that novelty, the next mate, the next mate.
Okay, so how is ED related to porn?
Yes. So what happens is these guys contact me and they say, I need help. I'm addicted to porn, but then they go on to say, but the reason I'm really calling you now is because now when I'm with my girlfriend or I'm with my wife, I can't orgasm or I can't even get it up without viewing porn. And so they're like, how do I stop? And I'm happy to say that really, if you can, if you don't have a physical problem, and this is your department here, but if you don't have a physical problem, that it is definitely reversible. Like I haven't had a guy yet that hasn't been able to turn it around. Um, but of course, they stop viewing the porn. I mean, that is of course a very important part is to stop viewing the porn.
Right. So, and you brought up a good point because the things that I do in my practice is to differentiate when I see a patient with EDs, whether this is psychological or physical,
Mm-hmm.
and 90% of ED is really physical.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a test that we do that called the penile Doppler ultrasound, where you use the same ultrasound machine that you would look at a baby for while when the baby is in the mom's stomach to look at the sex or look at the limbs. Well, you can do that with on the penis. Of course, we have to inject a medication to make a man get an erection, and then measure the blood flow that flows into the penis to determine, whether the penis has enough blood flow for an erection. And the good part is that if I see that there's good blood flow and he had ED, then it definitely, reverse 100% reversible and treatable.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just have to evaluate what lifestyle factors he's doing that contributing to that. And like you mentioned about porn, and then even alcohol, because excess alcohol can actually it's actually probably the number one link to ED
Mm-hmm.
after is alcohol, increased alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
and how much is bad. The more I do research on this, it's actually, I used to say 14 drinks a week. It's probably now probably down to like maybe 7 to 10 drinks a week, as in crossing over like too much, because alcohol is foreign, it's toxic,
Mm-hmm.
and your body do not make alcohol. Alcohol is ingested, but your body in the liver makes acetyl alcohol, which is not a component in your body.
Yeah.
So your body have to process that. So
Yes.
that's why your liver become. That's why you have a fatty liver or cirrhosis, because it's working hard to try to process that, and then your body try to get rid of it, and that's why you see all the symptoms of being inebriated and hangover and so forth, because it affects your nerve, it affects your blood vessel, it affects your hormone. And the recent study that I've seen about alcohol, that even though when you're not drinking, sometimes the alcohol can even affect the nerve in your brain to affect memory.
Mm-hmm.
So the effect of the alcohol can be longer lasting. So getting back to ED on porn, is that, yes, we can definitely do a test to differentiate between, is it psychological or is it physical? And if they're younger, then it's probably, other factors as well. So how do you get men to realize that, hey, the ED is related to your porn, and what is your approach and how to help them?
Well, they have already when they by the time they reach out to me, they already have made that conclusion. For example, one client for fairly recently did go to a doctor somewhat like yourself, did have all the tests, and they said, "Hey, you're in great health, and there's nothing wrong below your testosterone, all that stuff. It's all your levels are all good." He's like, "Phew," you know. So by the time they reached me out, to me, I don't really have to make a determination. They're already coming in saying, here it is.
Right. So, what is your approach on how to help them overcome with their ED related to porn?
Yeah. So it still starts with mindset is still the main thing that I will start with. But one of the tools that I found that is really helpful with ED is called the emotional freedom technique, or EFT. The slang of it is called tapping. And basically, on all your acupressure points, you tap on them in certain ways while you say certain things. And I found it to be very effective because it's like an onion. Like we'll start tapping on the issue of maybe ED, or it's tapping on the issue of being addicted to porn. And then as we tap, these other thoughts will come to mind, and then we'll start tapping in that direction. And it's really
So, what do you
helpful.
mean by tapping? Are you talking physical tapping or really more in like a directional
No, I'm talking
thought?
physically with your finger tapping on pressure points. And
And as you're tapping in those pressure points, you think about those thoughts.
I say certain words, and then the client says them back and follows me. But then after a few rounds, then we go into where I have them like purposely interrupt me to guide where this tapping sequence goes. And like I said, it's like an onion. We'll start tapping on one issue, then maybe a trauma. Oh, here, this is a good point. We might uncover a trauma. So in the past, when my traditional therapies and all that I went to, we'd discover a trauma, and it's like, okay, here's the trauma, and okay, let's do talk therapy on it for 10 years, and maybe it will get better. But with EFT, with the emotional freedom technique, with tapping on a trauma, we can bring that level down pretty quickly. And we use what's called the subjective unit of distress scale, or SUDS scale for short. When I ask them on a scale of 0 to 10, what is your anxiety level? What's your fear, or whatever emotion is? What number it is before we start tapping, and then what the number is after. And it almost always goes down.
Hmm. By thinking the thought and doing the motion of tapping on the puncture point,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Really. And how many points are there?
Well, we only use about, I mean, I know there's many, but we only use about 10. We only use about
Okay.
10.
Right.
Yeah.
So 10, and how long is the session? How many sessions do they need?
They're short. So typically, like a long one would be 15 minutes, but more on average, like 7 to 10 minutes. And some
Okay.
guys get relief very quickly. Other guys do require, more follow up. But like I said, though, it's not just like when I start working out with a client, I say to these words, I say, this is not about the porn. This is not about the porn. This is not about the porn. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm here because I'm addicted to porn. Yeah, well, that's just the symptom, and there may be an underlying trauma. And like I'm saying, not everybody has that, but a lot of people do, or at least some small trauma. And in the past, I would do these programs, and yeah, we'd find the trauma, and like, there it is. There it is. I had that trauma. But now, for my clients, have a tool that we can help reduce that level of stress, anxiety, or whatever for that trauma.
So you're saying is that there could be some a layer of trauma that is in subconscious that somewhat drive them to be drawn toward porn.
Yes, yes, and it's a
Huh.
sub it's a subconscious thing. Like, I
Yes.
never really thought, oh, I'm feeling bad right now, therefore I'm going to use porn. What it would usually happen is I'd end up on the computer like for a couple hours, and I'm like, then I would get done. I'm like, how did I even get here? Like, I don't even know like what happened. And then, my back of my brain is thinking, oh, I'm upset about whatever, and you need to seek out some type of relief. The porn is easily accessible and it's free.
I see. So it's some type of subconscious, perhaps, underlying discomfort or
Hmm.
feeling that you're going through. That hey, you're gonna find the outlet here with porn. It's like the same kind of similar to being addicted to sweets, right? When you're not feeling well, you're stressed. You go to the refrigerator and get that ice cream. Eat
Yes,
that ice cream and binge on it
yes, and
because it
that's a
gives you that dopamine high,
yeah,
that sweet.
yes, and that's a great analogy. And in fact, I've got to say that that is my next thing that I'm tackling is a sweet. Uh, Sweets and ice cream, like for me, that's kind of a thing that I go to. Um, it's nothing in any way, shape, or form like the porn was. Like it's really not that negatively affecting my life, but I want to take better care of myself, and so that's my next thing
Sure.
is the
well,
sugar
well,
and
well.
ice
It's
cream.
it's still addiction, right?
Yeah,
It's still addiction.
yeah,
Porn or sugar
yeah,
or alcohol,
yeah.
um, or even exercise. Addicted to exercise. So how many sessions do they need to do with the EFT technique to finally get rid of their ED
Well,
and get rid of the porn?
well, what I do, I have a 12-week and a 16-week program that I uh, put guys through, depending on their needs. Will define on how much tapping we will do, but I guess the short answer is a 12 and or I'm sorry, a 12 or 16-week program that they go through, and we tap along the way.
All right, and it's a weekly session.
Yeah,
Okay,
weekly. So
so tapping on acupuncture points and then a mind shift. And so you're also doing counseling as well, or there's no counseling on
well,
top
I
of that?
don't really consider it so much counseling. So, we meet over Zoom once a week for about an hour. And like I did the traditional counseling thing, which is helpful. Like I don't discourage that at all in any way, shape, or form. However, if your intention with the counseling is to get over your addiction to porn, you're going the long, hard route. So I don't consider what I do counseling because I give them you need to do A, B, C, D. Like after each session we do, I'd say, okay, when you get home, you need to do A, B, C, D. And then they come back and or text me or email me their homework throughout the week. And they have a lot of things to do. Like it is an intensive 12 to 16 weeks. So that's the big difference is I have a structured plan on specific steps to do each week
Right,
as opposed to just talking about it.
right. So you hold them accountable and you make them implement so that way they can take steps towards recovery. So you
Yeah.
have to be invested
Yeah.
and into it. So I love that model. So how successful is this, and what has been the biggest challenge so far in working with them?
So I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Could you say that again?
What has been the biggest challenge in working with men addicted to porn, and then with pied. I'm sorry, pied.
Yeah.
Was the biggest struggle?
The biggest struggle with Pied is to overcome their belief that it's permanent. Like, like
Hmm.
the doctor says that there's nothing wrong with me. So therefore, maybe I'm just like doomed. You know what I mean? Uh, There's nothing wrong with me. So why can't I get it up? So uh, I'm happy to say I haven't lost one yet. I haven't lost one yet.
Good, absolutely, that's wonderful. So so it's really getting over the belief that hey, I can overcome this.
Exactly. And it goes
Yeah,
back to
and
mindset.
that I'm I'm not incurable. I'm not I have to overcome that. Hey, I can. be reversed. And I see that too in the men that I work at ED for, is really getting the mind shift that, hey, this is reversible. You got to put in some work and some action to reverse this. And it's just not, it takes time for you to get to this stage, right?
Yeah,
Years, over, years,
yeah.
years. So it's not gonna happen overnight. And with anything, you have to put in the work. And I love that you say that you haven't lost anyone. That's great. You have 100% result. Um, and so I talked about the biggest struggles and the you work with them through each point and holding them accountable. So how does our listener find out more about you and your technique?
If you go to powerfuleric.com, you can learn more about me there. You can also listen to my podcast, Porn Talk, and the links are on powerfuleric.com. And I would like to one say, if you do need an accountability partner, I can be that for you. And I like to use I use technology too. Use what's called accountability software. That if someone gets on porn, it will immediately text me in real time to let me know that they're viewing porn. So if you need an accountability partner, reach out to me at powerfuleric.com. Also, I'd like to offer your listeners a gift. I come bearing gifts. If they send me an email at eric@powerfuleric.com and put in the subject line free audiobook, I'll send them a copy of my audiobook, Everything You Know About Sex and Porn Addiction is Wrong, the 21 Myths About Sex and Porn Addiction. So just email eric@powerfuleric.com, put in the subject free audiobook.
Oh, wow, that is awesome. And I actually want to have a copy of that book
Great.
as well. So go to Eric at powerfuleric.com and put in the subject line free audio book. And thank you for that. And our listener will appreciate that. And we talked today about a very a challenging but interesting topic, and I'm sure there's more to talk about. But the main message that both you and I stress is that if you have pied porn induced ED, it is reversible,
It absolutely
and
is.
you can reverse it, and you can be a big part of being normal again, and that you are not broken, that you can be treated with the right, working with the right person to guide you. You need to be guided, but you are not broken, and that it is reversible. And that has been my message about sexual health, is that I believe that sexual health could be present throughout your whole lifetime, and that should not decline. And that sexual health is parallel general health, because it's such an integral part of our life, in our relationship. But it also can be complex as well. And so, having said that, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your stories and sharing your method and your free gift. I'm much appreciative that you're here, and I look forward to talking to you more.
My
Thanks,
pleasure.
Eric.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Sexual Health for Men podcast. If you love this episode, then please take a screenshot on your phone and post it on Facebook, Instagram, or wherever you post. And be sure to tag me and let me know why you like this episode and what you like to hear in the future. That will help me know what's great for you, and I would love to give you the most incredible free gift designed to help you improve performance quickly. Go to my website at sexualhealthformenpodcast.com to get the book, The 5 Common Costly Mistakes Men Make When Facing ED. I would appreciate it if you subscribe, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, and just know that you can have sexual vitality for life. I appreciate you. Until next time.